United States interests are very important. They're also very complicated and frankly very delicate. When proceeding in foreign policy, we must be careful to make sure we do our best to uphold as many interests as possible using the proper tools and the necessary requirements. In this speech, we're going to be looking at the three main voting issues against the affirmative team. The three reasons why voting for the affirmative at the end of today's debate round is simply not the best way of upholding the United States interests. The first voting issue is that of the current U.S. trajectory. The current U.S. trajectory. The simple fact is that the State Department is already recognizing the importance of Sudan, and it's recognizing the need to make improvements in the relationship. However, it is doing so in a careful and qualified manner, because it realizes that there are simply complications in the country of Sudan. Simply put, it has human rights abuses, and it has links to terror, as we'll be discussing later in the speech. It also has important considerations with its relationships with foreign countries. Now, normalization is an important bargaining chip. We have to realize that normalization with the relationship with the country of the United States is a very important tool. We've seen that this was important with Cuba, and the same thing will be true in Sudan. We have to be careful that when we use normalization, that we use it in the best way possible, and we use it carefully. Now, at the end of the day, if we stay with the current system, the United States will be using normalization in the best way possible, or at least in attempting to. It will be trying to normalize relationships with Sudan so long as we get what we need, so long as U.S. interests are best upheld. However, if something goes awry, or if something comes up, if Sudan shows it's not willing to best comply with the United States interests, the State Department can hold back. It can back off, and we can better protect U.S. interests by maintaining the status quo. Basically, my simple argument is that the State Department is already trying to do what the affirmative team is trying to do, but it's trying to do it more effectively. It's trying to do it more carefully and with more reservation. We as the negative team believe that we don't need to vote affirmative because the status quo is already addressing the problem, but from a more careful and from a more reasonable standpoint. The second voting issue is that of the ineffective solution. Ineffective solution by the affirmative team. This comes first to the issue of Russian influence, because this was the primary issue that has dominated the round from the affirmative perspective. Essentially, will Russian influence be properly countered by rushing and speeding up the normalization process? The negative team believes that this will not be the case. We have a couple of precedents for this. First of all, we've seen that when we released when we pulled back our sanctions and we helped to increase normalization a little bit, what was the first thing that Sudan did? It turned to Russia. It didn't come closer to the United States. It looked to Russia. And why is this important? It suggests that Sudan is not fully committed to a relationship with the United States. We haven't fully convinced them that the United States is the best option. That means that if we fully normalize relations and we fully free up Sudan, we can't be sure that they won't simply just turn to Russia even more. Further, the second argument under this is that the affirmative team has not provided any proof that by fully speeding up the normalization process, we will be able to retain this influence and we'll be able to box Russia out. They haven't read any evidence to this point or supported this argument other than logic, simply saying that we need to speed up this process. Simply put, that's not enough when we already looked at the precedent and see that Sudan is looking to Russia. Now, they also brought up the example of the failed economy and how this is important because Sudan is a counterterrorism ally and we need to make sure that they have a strong economy. Now, I'd like to recognize this is, first of all, a relatively new argument brought up for a relatively late round, but secondly, we have to look at the significance. What does the economy of Sudan have to do with the United States interests? Well, it only is an important to the United States interests if Sudan is acting in a way that helps the United States. And we also see in the next point, Sudan simply is not. That brings me to the third and final voting issue, the reasons for caution. The reasons for caution. I believe that ties together the negative argument. If we can see that there are reasons to proceed carefully and with caution in the country of Sudan, then we should stick to the current system, because the current system does proceed with the proper level of caution necessary to best uphold the United States interests. First of all, we look to support for terror. Now, again, I'd like to clarify that their piece of evidence from the State Department was extremely limited in language and in scope. When we looked at the evidence from such as John Pendergrast, we see that while they might not be explicitly funding terror within their borders, they maintain ties to terror and they allow extremists to operate within their borders. This is sort of a passive support rather than an active sponsorship, but it is a problem nonetheless. Meaning that while they are claiming to support counterterrorism operations with the United States, behind the scenes, they are not doing their fullest to actually support this. And in fact, they might be allowing the United States interests to be harmed. We see other reasons, such as the humanitarian crisis. This point has not really been refuted by the affirmative team, simply that the Sudanese government is a humanitarian crisis and it hurts its own civilians. And finally, the issue of outside influence, the fact that it looks to other countries when we normalize relations. If we as the negative team believe that, that these are reasons for caution, and if you agree, then we ask you to stand with the State Department. Because the State Department takes things slow and it takes them carefully. It might take them too slow and it might take them too carefully, but the fact of the matter is, it is better than rushing into the situations without the proper level of caution. At the end of the day, if the affirmative team, everything it says is true, the State Department will end up normalizing relations with Sudan, and it will do so in a way that upholds interests. But if there is any reason for caution, I urge you not to speed up the normalization process, and instead stand with the status quo and the State Department. Thank you so much.